Broad Street Review podcast is an extension of Broad Street Review, Philly's home for arts, culture, and conversation, an online arts and culture journal covering the greater Philadelphia area. I'm your host, Darnell Radford. Today on the podcast, co-artistic director Taibi Magar and creators Patrick and Daniel Lazor drop in to talk about the Philadelphia Theatre Company's production of Nightside Songs, on stage through March 9th. Here is my interview for PTC's production of Nightside Songs. And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in the virtual studio to talk about the Philadelphia Theatre Company production of Nightside Songs. And Nightside Songs has a community tour attached to it as well. It's sort of like a teaser or like a junket, if you will, to get everybody excited about this piece as it ends up on PTC's stage. And so we're here to talk to the collaborators who have brought this piece to life. And we will do introductions starting with Taibi.
Hi, so happy to finally be on your show, Darnell. My name is Taibi, and I'm co-artistic director of Philadelphia Theatre Company and the director of Nightside Song.
Great.
I'm Daniel. I'm one of the creators, along with my brother.
And I'm his brother, Patrick.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. So, Taibi, being that this is your first time on the podcast, and given the time you've been at PTC, I'm excited to learn about Taibi. So, tell us about Taibi.
Oh, Taibi. Let's see. Daughter of an Egyptian immigrant and a Reformed Southern Baptist white mother. My parents' psychic told them I should get into theater. The story began. I don't know. I was like really bored as a kid and pretty lonely, and stumbled into this beautiful art form, and I'm thrilled to still be working inside of it. Especially in circumstances like this with Daniel and Patrick, who are my dearest, closest collaborators, so much so that I consider them my brothers. Yes.
We're sick.
All right.
Yeah.
Daniel and Patrick, tell us about the Lazors.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, Boylston, right outside of Worcester, Mass. And we started writing together when I was about 14 and Daniel was 12. We started with a 15-minute musical that we wrote for a high school play competition, or middle school, high school play competition. And then from there, we had this little community theater called Calliope Theater. That would let us do original musicals for a weekend every summer. And so that's how we sort of cut our teeth, if you will, doing original shows there.
Cut our baby teeth.
Exactly. Doing original shows there over the summer, and inviting friends, and having people in the community act and make the sets and all that stuff. And then from there, we came to the big city, New York City, and met Taibi, who, yes, is like truly our closest collaborator and sister and all of that good stuff. And we started collaborating with Taibi on a show called We Live in Cairo, and this is sort of our second big collaboration together, Nightside Songs.
Great.
I verify all of that.
Ditto. Yeah. So enter Nightside Songs. Tell us where the inspiration, the idea of Nightside Songs came from.
Yeah, the first sort of spark of the idea was after Patrick and I had read this book called The Death of Cancer, written by one of like the very early chemotherapists in the 60s. Like he was involved in some of those really early, some of the earliest successful chemotherapy trials. And it was just a fascinating time to think about, like this moment, this major turning point when cancer went from uncurable for millennia to suddenly curable, or a chance. There was a chance at a cure with this combination of drugs. So we sort of set down the path to write a like very traditional book musical, and you know, at that same time, Patrick and I were dealing with cancer in our own family, and there were two deaths of family members that happened in pretty quick succession. So as we were writing about this, you know, sort of very clinically writing this like very traditional book musical about chemotherapy, we were, you know, dealing with the very personal journey of that as caregivers, and so we sort of took a step back and we're like, well, how we feel like we have to somehow tend to this in this musical about cancer that we're writing, tend to this you know, very intimate experience of going on an illness journey, whether as a patient or as a caregiver. So we sort of took a step back and we decided to go down this journey with Taibi. You know, we sort of developed it all together, of making this show a sort of communal experience with the audience and telling a very simple sort of homespun story, you know, that was something hopefully a little bit more personal to Patrick and me, and by being more personal and specific to us, hopefully more universal for the audience that we're asking to sing along with us, which sounds scary, but it's not. I think we're hopefully trying to make it something that people don't have an allergic reaction to when they come into the theater.
Yeah. No, I think we've done a pretty good job of establishing a space that gives people the opportunity to participate while not, like, you know, strong arming them to do so.
So you said that while you were in the process of writing this, you were dealing with loss. And, you know, when you hear about someone who's dealing with loss, they tend to need some time, and that time is not clear. You know, it could be a couple of weeks, it could be a couple of months, it could be years. And yet, while you were dealing with that, you were still, you were putting it into your art. How did you care for yourselves in that moment while continuing to work?
Yeah, I think,
You know, go ahead, Pat. Yeah.
for us, I think it took a little while. Definitely, I think for a long period of time, it was during like the caretaking process. It was a lot of observing, you know, a lot of togetherness, obviously, but also a lot of observing and a lot of like just thinking about what it means, what illness means, what the illness journey, what we like to call like the illness journey means. And I think one thing that we came away from the experience with was this feeling of like the intense privacy and almost secrecy of illness and of especially cancer still in our society. And that was something after a few years, I think that was something that we kind of came away thinking maybe that needs to change, or maybe we need to think about that a little bit in terms of Night Sight songs and what it can give to people.
I think not and coincidentally, my mom actually passed just over a year ago from cancer, and I had lost my dad when I was 25. And when they first started writing the show, I was like, oh yeah, it's all about my father's experience. And then when my mom was passing, it was like, oh yeah, no, my God, this is all about my mom. It has such a universal quality. And there was something that, for me, I guess I use the theater as a way to process my life questions. I stopped going to church when I went to this, extremely liberal, non-denominational church. And I find it as the way to, I like using my own life questions to fuel my work, and was really fed about in the process of losing my mom, because we've been developing it for, oh gosh, on and off for, I don't remember, 5 or 6 years. And my mom had cancer pretty much the whole time. And actually, one of our last workshops, the presentation was the day we found out it had spread to her brain, and she was gone 6 weeks later. And but it's cathartic for me. It like helps frame a way of thinking and moving through my life experiences. The grief and illness, but all the other, this other show we worked on, We Live in Cairo, was all about the Egyptian Revolution, which is very personal to my family. And it just it helps. Theater is a way of thinking and moving through the world that has been a really rewarding process, and this has been absolutely the most rewarding of all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We join in that space together to make sense of and engage in that conversation. And if the piece is well laid out, and we walk out of there in the end with a sense of clarity, a little bit of a lighter sense to ourselves, and it's because we were in that space together. It's funny. Theater is kind of like a selling point for group therapy.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's like getting in. And as you were saying, how you don't frequent church, now, like, we do tend to kind of replace the church with the theater, because there's a lot of messages that we get out of these moments, and then they carry through in our life. What did Shakespeare say?
Right.
Or what did Janine say in that moment, in that piece? Many times, I know for a fact, when I'm in a heated discussion, quotes from musicals tend to come out.
Same.
And I think also what makes musicals particularly religious isn't the word, but kind of like we like to call Night Side Songs kind of a secular mass, but musicals are sort of mass-like just because of the music, the songs, and the idea that songs can provide an understanding that's deeper. Melodies and lyrics can provide an understanding that's deeper than just like the intellectualism of other art forms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think like something we've been thinking about too is how we have such few opportunities, especially if we don't go to church, such few opportunities to sing together, and that's such a healing thing. And it's like there's something that happens with the vibrations, with the with just like seeing someone else singing the same words that you're singing, and hearing this group sound, contributing your voice, to create something larger than any individual. Like, I think it's a really beautiful thing, and also the sad thing that we don't have that, in our culture. So this is sort of an attempt to fill that void a little bit.
Yeah, I saw a quote the other day, and I can't pinpoint who it was from, but it was something to the reference of, like, we're losing these common spaces where we can come together, and church is one of them. There's a lot of emotion in there, especially when everybody starts singing the hymns. And if you could remember growing up in church, there's always someone who is overcome by by emotion in those moments, and then that becomes an experience that everyone is a part of. And it is interesting that we can't just go somewhere. I mean, like you could argue that bars on karaoke night are kind of that moment.
Yeah.
You can pick a song and just sing it out,
Right.
and with no criticism. Like no one's critiquing you. Although it may be tough if you are well trained to go in there and just have fun and not just blow everybody's socks off.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And I think exactly. And I think, we're hoping to equalize that. And it's been so fun. Like, we presented the piece in New York before coming to Philly. And just like these different audiences, like some of those audiences in New York were like majority musical theater friends of ours. And it's like everybody was just singing out, like, and then we came to Philly and we did a performance at the Marrero Library. And it was a smaller crowd, definitely not a musical theater crowd, but equally as beautiful. And it's such an equalizing thing. I think singing together and singing in a choir. And it's like, I remember those early like experiences in middle school and high school singing in a choir. And you just be like, it's this cleansing, like waterfall of sound coming over you. And you're like, this is amazing that we're all agreeing to make this sound, and we're all agreeing to not be heard as individuals, but we're agreeing to build something together. And it's like, it's such a beautiful thing that we have such few opportunities to do. So
I was
I think
yesterday.
Yeah.
I know everyone watched Kendrick Lamar's masterful performance on Sunday, but there was this video of, I think, a bar in LA where like a bunch of people were watching it, and they were all just like at the top of their lungs, singing along, just like, and what was that summer? Which is this past summer when it was the Taylor Swift and Beyonce tours happening at the same time. Everyone, like those moments where you see those videos where the huge stadium singing out, like connecting over a piece of art. It's that same impulse. Do I wish that we, had a stadium full? We could do it to a stadium full of people. I do actually, but it's the same impulse of wanting to be together, and that impulse to sing together is very real.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, Taves. Yeah, concert. It's karaoke or concerts or huge concerts. Those are the places that you feel the permission.
There are moments in a concert where the artist just turns the mic on to the audience.
Right.
Like, you got this.
Right. Totally.
I've forgotten these lines anyway.
Right.
Especially if it's like one of their like old stables and they're just like, I have new music, and they're like, play that one.
I know.
Because it just puts them in a zone. Like I was thinking the other day about the TV series Glee. When it first came out, they had a pilot episode right at the beginning of the summer, and that episode ended with Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, right.
And it was like, this show is so camp. It is. I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but like even through that, because what Journey does to everybody for some reason. By the end of it, you're like, I think they got a show on their hands. Because it's like, I thought that was like perfect. You end this with something everybody knows, and it's just going to be an earworm all summer, and you're going to have to find out. You have to find out and see what else they do.
Totally.
But that music connects you. And it really does bring us all together. I point out all the time, especially in there's moments, like I can't pinpoint them. Like I was in the choir in, all through middle school and high school, but I don't read music. So I'm always like, when I like certain notes, I'm like, they're in the black keys. And I'm feeling it. Like there's moments and there are chords that like if you put them in, that they're like tear jerking chords.
Totally.
And they know what they're doing. And as soon as they come in, you're like, oh man,
I know. But you got to be careful. And it's so funny with this show. Like, you careful not to overuse them. Like that was such a thing of like, Totally. I know, and I feel like I know maybe what chords, like, we might, going up to the like relative minor and a key or whatever. But like, I think with this show, what has been really interesting is finding all the different colors of it, of like those really sweet, those really like yearning sounds. And then what's the fun? What's the like maybe slightly ironic, and like hopefully having all of these colors at play, because I know some of the early drafts, I'm like, this whole score is too sweet, too, sad, sweet, sad, and it's like balancing it out, I think was such an interesting challenge.
Yeah. Let's talk about your team. You lay the blueprint and you're working with Taibi crafting this, but you got to have a team help bring this together. So talk about how you brought the team together that we're going to experience at PTC.
Yeah. So, I'll start with the actors, which is a mix of both actors who we've developed this piece. Actually, we started so long ago. Moving to Philly wasn't even in my brain. So it's a bunch of actors we've been working with for a long time, and then in Philly we've been lucky enough to bring on board Robbie Hager and MP Scallon, and they are incredible and have really. It's such a we've developed it with the same actors for so long that it was wildly informative, and I'll just be totally honest, wildly reassuring that the material still holds. Even through different actors, right? Because that's when the material's good, right? It's like when it transcends the person you sort of crafted it with. And that's been an incredible experience. And they've just brought a whole new level to the material. And it's just so wonderful to have Philly artists inside of it. Also, Alex Bechtel, who's pretty famous here in Philly, our incredible music director, who is also an incredible composer. And when we were first casting out for music director, I knew Alex, he's an incredible composer. His career is like wildly fruitful. And I was like, well, I'm just going to ask, just because the Lazores and Alex kind of chemistry wise just made so much sense to me, especially with this piece. And, he's an incredible piano player. Like, what more can you want? And so he's been a real gift. And then our designers, we've worked with the local Philadelphia designer, Matt Saunders, who I've worked with on and off for a number of years. And it's Chandrasekhar, who's our lighting designer, and Jason Goodwin, who's our incredible costume designer, and Justin Stashu is our sound designer. But it's been such a fun process with the sound, because as you'll see, it actually became an exercise in how little you can design it. And actually became like, how much can you sit on your hands as director and designer? And that's been a really fruitful process. And from one performance to the next, I sort of wildly changed direction, sort of like deleted all the design I could possibly delete, just because it really wanted an incredibly untheatrical approach, actually, in order to make the material come alive. The more that it resembled a play, the more people felt outside the experience and didn't feel like joining with us. And it was from one night to the next, it was like it wasn't working, and then the next night, just sort of incredible transformation. The material just lifted up and up and up, and it was really rewarding. So yeah, so an incredible team who's been really on this beautiful journey with us. Yeah, very lucky.
Great. Yeah. We love all those Philadelphia artists. It's just so exciting to see them attached to this, because we know them from various different things. Like
Sure.
Alex is in Alex is in my partner and I's circle of friends.
Right.
We had a group night at a movie theater one night that was crazy. It was good times, and it's always fun to see everyone showing up with their art and just like, wow, that's moving forward. This is great.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a while. Wonderful. So right now, as we're talking now, but you're listening later, you're rounding up the community tour that was set up for to bring this work to people who may not be able to make it to the theater. Talk about the community tour and what the experience has been.
Yeah, so maybe I'll kick it off, and then Daniel and Patrick, you can talk about it from your experience. So I'd say that a big part of who Tyler's my co-artistic director. It's a big part of who we are is when we really see theater as a mechanism for social connection, right? It's not even really about the theater. It's a way to be together. It's a way, as we were saying earlier, to have conversations and be in relationship to each other. And this was like the perfect piece to do that with. And we really, because of the nature of the material, because it's based on interviews with real doctors, nurses, patients, survivors, caregivers, caretakers, both in Boston, where it was originally commissioned, but also here in Philadelphia, it just felt like it needed to break outside of the theater walls. Like it didn't want to. Actually, the Lizards and I, even long ago, didn't want it to live in a traditional theater. It's not a traditional proscenium, despite everyone's wishes. It does not belong on Broadway, right? This is meant to be intimate. It's meant to be a broken proscenium feel. And although if someone wants to try take it to Broadway, I guess we'll take it. If anyone's listening, we'll take it. So it felt like we needed to get direct access to the audiences that need it most, and we especially wanted to serve audiences who don't normally get access to art. And so we raised some money, got some money, and we're able to take it to, I think, I want to say 8 different institutions, maybe 9 across 2 weeks, to give free theater. We've been inside hospitals, community centers, and libraries, and the Community College of Providence. I'm sorry, Providence. I get my P's mixed up. Community College of Philadelphia, which is coming later this week. And it's just been a real gift. I love Daniel. Patrick, unfortunately, was in the night side. It was a little bit sick our week of the tour, but you got to see one. I'd love to hear from your point of view what the tour has been like, because obviously we know Philly well, and I just wonder what even you to weigh in.
I mean, Daniel and I had this conversation the first night, but it's precisely what the show is intended to be. Something that is, Taibi, you say it quite a bit, and you just said it, the service, there's a service oriented nature to this piece. And, I think, the more people who can see it that are outside, just like the kind of theaterati community, the better, because really this show is about something that touches us all in some way, shape, or form. And the show provokes just a lot of conversation and a lot of questions. And sometimes those conversations are better provoked and are more easily had in spaces that aren't the temple floor, the theater space. And I just thought it was so cool. Like our first night we did it, and it felt so community driven. Like there was food out and people were coming in, people were laughing, like the actors were coming out, passing out programs. And then the show started, and there was no real hoopla about it. It was just the show started, and we all experienced this thing in the room together. And that was what was so special about, at least the one I saw. I don't know if it all went downhill after that.
We also performed in the oldest surgical amphitheater in the country at Pennsylvania Hospital. And that was amazing. We did 2 performances there. And what was really nice, and I really think it'll still happen, the rest of the tour, as we move to the Suzanne Roberts to do our sort of more formal run. The first night, like people really went out, people who worked in the hospital sort of told their friends. And so we got quite a bit more people the second night. A good number of nurses came. And it was so amazing. Just like Patrick's saying, it's all very casual, and like the actors were coming out, and one of our actors who plays a nurse in the show was having this really robust conversation with this group of nurses. And they were going back and forth and just sharing stories and just dropping gems of wisdom, as as nurses often do, effortlessly. So no, it's just been great. It's just been so great, and PTC has just produced this like so beautifully, and the fact that there's delicious sandwiches that are free at each of these tour stops is so cool. Among many other cool things, I think that's just like a really cool and humble aspect to the tour.
What is better than food and theater? I ask.
Right.
Literally.
Dinner and show.
The way to any artist's heart through their stomach.
Totally.
I think that's so great to meet them where they are, because we're constantly trying to get them to come to our sort of bastion of theatrical performance, and if they've never been here before, that's kind of like a stretch, And so I think it's great to take this piece and sort of introduce these areas to some theater, and then also tell them where it's going to be later, because they're going to remember that you came to them, and so now they'll come to you.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I know we're tight on time, but I wanted to ask the brothers, will you ever work independently?
Great question. Well,
not that I want you to. I'm just wondering.
I'm working on my symphony in secret. I guess tonight's the night I should tell you, Patrick.
No, okay.
It's happening.
Betrayal. The betrayal begins. Maybe. Honestly, Darnell, maybe. I mean, I think like we have our thing going now, so I think we're excited about that. But I think the mood strikes. We're not against it.
I'm pretty sure if it ain't broke.
Yeah. Right.
But sometimes you have ideas that are
totally
singular, solitary.
Yeah.
You are writing something with another writer, which is interesting. The Christmas nativity that you're writing. So, cool. Yeah, we break it up a little.
Yeah,
totally.
Right, totally. Yeah, we're writing this this like musical nativity with our friend Mark Sonnenblick, which has been fun. Yeah, bringing another energy into the mix is always fun. Taibi knows well.
Yeah.
So, how can our listeners keep up with the both of you? Like, how can they connect with you?
We've got a little Instagram, Frère Lazur, like the brother, like brothers in French, Freres Lazur. And we also have our music out. We've released a lot of music under the Lazurs, so you can like look us up on streaming platforms. And we like a lot of the music it's from shows, and a lot of it isn't. And I think like it's been nice to sometimes write some things that aren't connected to theater, because there's different pressures on it when you're like having to write for the stage. So so we have some like I think quirky and slightly outre sort of folk songs that are out there that you can find.
Cool. All right. Well, everyone, the production is Nightside Songs. Words and music by the Lazurs, directed by Taibi Magar. This production is on stage through March 9th. So you can get your tickets, and that's tickets plural because theater is more fun with a +1.
Yeah.
Taibi, Patrick, Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to unpack Nightside Songs. I'm excited to be in the space with other people and engage in this conversation. And thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Darnell. This is such a joy.
Finally.
Thank you to our guests, Taibi Magar and Patrick and Daniel Lazur, for joining us on today's podcast. The Broad Street Review podcast is an Emory production. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, visit us online at em3ry.com. Get involved with Broad Street Review. Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com. and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Donate to find out how. There, you can also find our social media links. Thank you for your part in keeping the conversation going.